Hello, this is AnlineOffline. Welcome back to another casual's quick guide to Call of Duty Mobile. For today's video, we'll be covering the RUS-79U. Unlocked at the start of the game along with the M4, the RUS is a fully automatic SMG, but because it fires a rifle cartridge, it would technically be classified as a carbine or a PDW by modern standards. It's unmistakably based on the AKS-74u, which has not appeared in that many COD games outside of campaigns, zombies, or spec ops. In fact, for 10 years, the 74 was not easily or officially available in a mainline Call of Duty multiplayer. Moving on to its out-of-game history. Despite lacking resources and reliable allies, the Nazis were able to make impressive military innovations. The MWII among them was the first assault rifle to exist. Under Soviet occupation of East Germany, companies such as Heinel were forced to give up military designs as a form of war reparation. This would go on to inspire Mikhail Kalashnikov and his team to design the AK-47. The original plan for the Warsaw Pact was for the USSR to be the sole provider of its weaponry. The problem was, despite rapid industrialization under Stalin's 5-year plan, metallurgy and machinery were not advanced enough to mass-produce the original AK-47's milled receiver for itself, or much less a multinational military alliance. A compromise was made, and Pact members were granted patents to produce their own AKM variants with stamped receivers. It's this cheap, simple, and reliable design that has led it to be the most produced weapon of all time. But even an all-time classic must continue to evolve during an arms race. Although the Vietnam War was a PR disaster for the American public, the performance of the M16 and its high-velocity intermediate .223 cartridge was something to observe. And so 1 year after the Americans fully withdrew from Vietnam, the Soviets greenlit their AK-74, chambered for 5.45 by 39. As for terminal ballistics, beyond a certain speed limit, some 5.56 rounds fragment when striking flesh. In contrast, 5.45 is meant to stay intact and is more prone to tumbling. Both are bad for the human body. Although the Soviets were not successful in Afghanistan, the 74U was infamous to the Mujahideen, who referred to the 7.6 variant of the 5.45 as the poison bullet, but that didn't stop the Krinkov from becoming Osama bin Laden's favorite weapon. Contrary to its in-game description, base damage per shot is moderate, killing in 4 shots initially, but drops off considerably to 7 at long range. Assuming no range attachments, your effective range is 32 meters. Compared to its other iterations, Mobile 74U is among the fastest firing in the franchise. Shots to the head and chest deals 10% more damage. Legs deal 10% less. Realistically, these body multipliers don't matter much. Within 18 meters, it's not possible to kill slower. Beyond 18 meters, you'd have to aim exclusively at the legs to kill slower. In terms of bloom, the RUS is on the mediocre end of average. Hipfire performance is one of the worst in the SMG class, almost comparable to an LMG. Recoil is fairly light, but with some horizontal swerve. And the iron sights are solid. In terms of movement speeds, the RUS is average for an SMG. However, ADS speed is tied for the slowest in the class. Base magazine size is 30 rounds, but can be extended to 38 or 50 with varying drawbacks, on top of having to reload quite frequently due to its fast firing. Speaking of which, reload times can feel slow, especially in regards to reload cancelling as you have to shimmy the magazine in. The RUS is one of the more memorable weapons since launch, but unlike the DLQ, the RUS has not been as old or reliable. Back then it was correctly named the AKS-74u, but was changed later due to copyright, presumably. It competed with the PDW for the flexible SMG of choice, whereas the MSMC was for aggression. Even with new weapons, such as the cordite and MP5, it continued to be relevant. When Gunsmith was added, the RUS should have been more relevant on paper. It was one of the few weapons to not be ruined by the inclusion of bloom, and it received a consistent recoil pattern like most weapons. However, its magazine size was reduced. It technically gained a 4-shot range, but that was confined to 4 meters, which is well within slide melee distance. Thus, range attachments were almost useless. Later, when SMGs were buffed in early 2021, it gained improved strafing, but again its initial range was so short that more aggressive SMGs such as the MP5, Fennec, and MX9 were able to outmaneuver and outperform it at range. Even though it's mostly remembered for the good old days, I'd argue that the golden age for the RUS was earlier this year, when its initial 4-shot range was doubled along with the AK-17, allowing it to finally hold its own in close quarters. But its defining accuracy was unreasonably nerfed months later. It was supposed to be reverted this season, but that remains to be seen. And until then, it's tied with the current PDW for possibly the worst SMG. In terms of changes, its accuracy should be restored. It would also help if the reloading was faster, or at least its cancels. And lastly, the RUS should undergo similar buffs to its body multipliers like the AK-17 before it. It won't change its mid to long range time to kill that much, but would give its second range the potential to 4-shot. But hey, that's just my opinion. Feel free to suggest what weapons you want to see covered next. My name is On, and I'm off.